Hi, everybody. This is Colin Murphy, and welcome to Torcana podcast number 17. So, some of you have been listening to the last 16 episodes, could be forgiving for wondering when I'm actually going to invite somebody on the show. Well, today I'm happy to introduce you all to Mike Bundy. Mike is a broker and a property manager with a lot of experiences who manages both my properties and those of dozens of other investor clients in the Tampa Bay area. He's kindly agreed to join us on the podcast today. He's going to tell us about what life is like as a property manager in Tampa, Florida, the problems he encounters, and a lot of things investors need to be aware of. So, Mike, good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Colin. Doing great. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good. How does it feel to be the first guest on the Torcana podcast?
I'm honored.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. So listen, Mike, tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to be a property manager in Tampa, Florida.
Sure. Well, about 9 years ago, I decided to get into real estate. Previous to that, I was in software development for about 30 years. So I got my real estate license, and I decided to take on real estate. But shortly thereafter, my broker approached me about starting a property management division in our office. It seemed to be an increase in demand for property management. Of course, at that time, the housing market was starting declining. The economy was starting to show signs of problems. So we just thought it was a good thing to start, and that's how we got started.
Okay, all right. Well, look, I know from experience that a property manager's absolutely key to the success of a rental property. A great manager can turn a good property into a fantastic one, or a bad manager can turn a great property into a horrible one. So, in your opinion, what sets apart really good managers from ordinary or bad ones?
I really believe that the difference between a good and a bad property manager is the approach to the business. Oftentimes, property managers think that it's a very simple process. It's just about collecting the rent and handling, a little bit of maintenance issues and such. But the reality is it's a lot more than that. And what we've done is we've broken down property management into three segments: leasing, management, and maintenance. And by doing that and having clear definitions, we feel that we're a cut above everybody. We're much more efficient, and we provide much better service.
Okay. No, I mean, I certainly know that from my own experience that you guys really do know what you're doing, and it's refreshing after having dealt with so many ordinary and a couple of bad ones over the years. So, I mean, talk to us about the tenant search process. I mean, what work is involved from your end? How do you find good tenants, and what's the process and timelines involved in getting them into a property?
Sure. Well, once we get a property, obviously, presentation is the key. So we get professional photographs, because like everything else in today's society, the internet is a very powerful tool. And 99% of the people that we encounter see our properties on the internet first. So we feel the presentation is the key. Once we get those pictures up on the internet, we deal with probably, I think it's about 16 different websites, from Zillow Manager, Trulia, Homes.com, Realtor.com, our website, and several others that trickle down. So we get maximum exposure out there. The other side is we believe that, of course, presentation, again, is the key. We put professional signage out. We just don't put a kick-in sign or a little cardboard sign. We have very professional, they're on posts and everything, and we put descriptions and things like that. So when people are driving by, because especially some of the areas where they get some decent traffic, people drive by, they see them, we get the phone calls. Once, with that, we get the inquiries, we show the property, then there's the application process, and everything is done online. Applicant applies, several questions, obviously. The most important things are the income, where they live now, how long they've been there, where they work, how long they've been there, and then once they submit that, then we go through a pretty detailed background check. And basically what we do, it's called criminal, civil, credit, and eviction background, and to give us a picture of that tenant. And then we go from there.
Okay. So, even before you get to the doing the background checks and credit score checks and rental history checks? How do you avoid? I mean, imagine you get 50 or 60 emails saying I'm interested in property on XYZ Street. I mean, presumably you don't want to go and physically show all 60 people the property. Is there anything you do to whittle that down so that you're only actually meeting serious people at the property and showing it to guys that are actually likely to want to rent it and be able to rent it?
Absolutely. We do what they call a pre-qualifying process. We're going to ask them about their income. Our rule is their net income must equal at least 3 times the rent. That's the start. We ask them about their background. Have they had any evictions? Have they had any criminal activity? We ask all that up front, and we do it in a very pleasant way because we don't want to waste their time as well.
Okay.
So we go through all that.
Okay, so you'll just kind of say to them, look, we're looking at $1,000 per month for this property. If you don't have a net income of $3,000, there's no point in wasting your time to come out here. We're going to find it out anyway when we do an employment verification. So if that's not you, don't worry about it, but there's no point in you coming further, and you wait for a kind of a verbal yes from them. Yes, I'm working in a government office. I'm earning $3,500 a month and have a clean record. You just kind of take their word on it to go and see the property. But once they fill out an application form, you're going to find out for sure. And most of the time, I guess, they've been straight with you, but every now and again, you're going to find somebody who's been a bit optimistic on their qualifications.
Absolutely. Right on.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so what makes it easy for you to rent out a property? What kinds of properties are going to be the ones where you get loads of inquiries, lots of good quality people looking to live there?
Well, that's pretty easy. The demand out there is really great. The supply is low. So the properties that present themselves well, homes that have been refurbished, homes that have had, nice kitchens, nice bathrooms, nice flooring, freshly painted, they almost have that like new quality.
Mm-hmm.
People get very excited about that, and those type of homes are the exception, not the norm.
Right.
And since we get the majority of our homes are classified under that, it makes it simple because obviously we're going to be getting more money for these homes. Mm-hmm. And when you have a quality product at a good price, your chances of getting a more quality tenant is much greater.
Okay, so are you saying the majority of homes that are listed for rent out there, I mean, not that many of them would have new roofs, new kitchens, fresh paint, clean flooring? That wouldn't be the norm?
That would not be the norm, correct.
Okay. And so aside from having a kind of a nice looking house, what do tenants want? I mean, what makes a tenant more likely to stay in a property for several years? I mean, I guess taking good care of them would be one thing, but what in your experience leads to happy clients and happy landlords with long-term relationships?
Well, when it comes to that, there's two sides. Obviously, the property. If the property is a nice home, most tenants recognize that, again, that's the exception, not the norm. Mm-hmm. So that's that side of it. The other side of it is the relationship with the property manager. The one thing that we do, the one thing we've learned is not to be police, not to put people on guard all the time. We develop a relationship. We want them to know that this is a team. We're here for you. We're here to make your experience a positive experience. Mm-hmm. If there's issues, if there's problems, you can come to us. We can work it out. If something that you're responsible for, we'll work it out. Don't be afraid. We're not there to make your life hell is the bottom line. And by taking that approach, people feel much more confident. We've got a good system for maintenance. Things get taken care of. The tenants get taken care of, and they feel like they're appreciated. And it's really important. And that's really rare out there because for the non-managed properties, a lot of these landlords, they quite frankly just don't do the job. They just want to collect their rent, and they don't want to do anything else. And the horror stories that I hear from people are quite amazing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've been the same. I've bought properties where you hear some incredible stories with tenants that are just living in houses that are almost at a disgrace. Not from anything they've done, but just because their landlord has been so incompetent and lazy. I mean, and I think the key to having one of the keys to having a very good long-term relationship, getting your rent checks every month for several years, is respecting a tenant that pays their bills on time. That if they're ringing you up with something that needs fixing, that you get a handyman or a plumber or electrician out there straight away to take care of it. And if you don't, if you're a bad landlord, I think you're probably more likely to get bad tenants as well. Would you agree with that?
Exactly, 100%. 100%.
Okay. So, I mean, is there, most of the properties I'd be sending your way, Mike, would be $100,000, 3-bed, 2-bath properties that are kind of nicely renovated. I mean, is there a particular tenant type that you receive applications for? Is it all young people with families? Is it retirees? Is it single moms? What kind of people live in the areas where we're sending you houses?
We get a mixed bag. As far as seniors go, we're starting to see an increase in seniors, especially the seniors that are taking care of grandchildren.
Okay.
We're seeing a lot of family activity, and we're seeing young couples that are just getting started. So it's sort of a mixed bag. The demographics of the area, the key employer of the area is the county government. So we get a lot of government employees. We get a lot of law enforcement. Pasco County is the area that we are the most, we're in here.
Sure.
So we get Pasco County Sheriff, we get firefighters, we get teachers.
Nurses as well, right? I think
we get nurses. We get that's a big plan too, because that's the second biggest employer is the Trinity Hospital here in West Pasco, and we get nurses. We get all types of support personnel, assistant radiologists and things like that. People that work at the hospital. Those are big draws as well.
So how many people, I mean, maybe you don't know how to guess, but of all the kind of tenants you manage, what percentage would work locally in Pasco compared to commuting south into bigger places like, downtown Tampa, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, places like that?
That's a great question. And off the top of my head, I would say, conservatively speaking, it's 50-50. 50% work here in Pasco. The other 50% is either going to be in Pinellas County, south of here, or Hillsborough County, which would be southeast of here. What people are recognizing is because of the quality homes that we're presenting and for the price, because as you go further south here, the rates go up as you get closer to Center City, Tampa, Clearwater, or St. Pete. Prices are going up, so people see great value. The cost of living in Pasco County is the difference is enough to make people endure a little bit of a commute, because not only are they saving on their housing, but they're saving on their car insurance and other things as well. So we do get the commuters.
Interesting. Okay. Look, I know you manage hundreds of properties. I know you're very good at using software to keep track of all the income and expenses going out, and I know the owners have access to that information as well. So what kinds of vacancy rates have you been experiencing for a typical kind of renovated single-family home? What should people expect?
Wow, to be honest with you, it's definitely been less than 5%. Often when we get these homes, they're gone within, we've got a qualified applicant within days of it going on the market. Everything is peaks and valleys in the business, but I mean, we've really, as far as vacancies, up until a few days ago, we had nothing. And fortunately, we've just took on a few properties, and the amount of activity over this past weekend was incredible. And I believe we had 4 properties, and out of the 4, we think we have 2 solid applicants right now. So, it's the business is very hot, and the demand is very hot. And for these kind of homes, people, again, are recognizing that quality is where they want to be, and they want a home that they're going to be proud of.
Wow, that's great. So if vacancies are less than 5%, how long would it typically take you and your team between receiving a property and advertising it? Let's say you advertise a property on a website with photos. This property is for rent, $1,000 a month. How long would it normally take for you to process the applications, find somebody qualified, and get them to sign a lease?
It's usually within 10 days of it going on the market, on average. I mean,
okay.
By the time it really, how can I say it? Most of the time it's about 10 days, because again, this weekend we had 4 properties, very, very strong activity. Had several applicants, and again, 2 out of the 4 where we got strong applicants. Those people were going through the vetting process right now of verifying the income, checking out where they lived previously, making sure that they paid their rent on time, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because the credit side and all that stuff looked good. So once that's done, then we have what I call a sit down with the tenant. I have a disclosure that I've come up with that gives what I expect and what they should expect about our relationship thing, and I go over things such as, you know, rent is due on the 1st. If it's after the 4th day, it's considered late, and you will be charged a late fee. Simple as that. And also expect what they call a 3-day notice, which is the beginning of an eviction period. We do this because we don't want them to be surprised about anything. We don't want we want to disclose to them exactly what the process is.
Mm-hmm.
We also go over what the maintenance issues are, items, I mean, and also to make them realize that when they're taking over possession, not ownership, but possession of a home,
Mm-hmm.
that they have a degree of responsibility.
Right.
And we explain to them, and the greatest example of that is if you're in your house and the kids next door are playing baseball and they're too close to the house, it's your responsibility to go out there and say, hey, guys, why don't you move it because you're going to wind up cracking that ball through a window and breaking it. If that occurs, you, the tenant, are going to be responsible for that repair, not the owner, because that's something that could have been avoided.
Right.
And I really believe that a lot of property managers fail in that ideology because, you know, a lot of them will just, you know, oh, well, the owner's got to pay for it. And we don't believe that. We believe that when you take possession of a property, you're responsible for it, and you have to take reasonable effort to protect that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, go live in an apartment then.
Right. I think that's exactly the right approach, that you outline the rules at the beginning in a polite but pretty firm way. You set out the rules and the guidelines. You show them where the red lines are, and you say, look, you don't cross these red lines. We're going to be great friends. We're going to treat you with respect. Anything that needs fixed in the house is going to get fixed. But if you start messing us about, if you start paying your bills late, things are going to change, and it's not going to be good for you. And I think that's the way to do it. So I imagine every now and again you get people that cross the line, and I guess you've had to deal with a few evictions. So a lot of people, you know, particularly out-of-state guys, get worried about that. And I know evictions vary a lot from state to state. So talk to us about how that works in Florida. What happens in Florida if a tenant that you're managing, you know, doesn't pay the rent on time? How long does it take? What are the steps to go towards, you know, the late fees, eviction notices, getting them out of the property? Tell us a bit about how that works and how much money it can cost.
Sure. We're very fortunate in Pasco County that they have a pretty organized system. So basically, the way the eviction process works here, and the way we do it, rent is due on the 1st. On the 5th day, if it's not received, automatic late fee $50. Then it's $5 a day until they pay. In the meantime, at the same time, they get issued what they call a 3-day notice. And what a 3-day notice is, it's on demand. They're given 3 business days to come up with the rent. If they fail to do so, either they give up possession at that point, or we initiate the eviction process. If we have to initiate the eviction process, the next step is we take the 3-day notice and a copy of the lease, and then we start the process by going to our paralegal team that draws up the complaint to the court. Goes through the court system. Long story short, it usually takes a non-contested eviction, takes about 3 weeks here in Pasco County. Out of the evictions I've done, I've only done in 8 years, I think I've done maybe 24. And
how many of those were contested versus, so 24 evictions, how many of those were people that just went quietly once they saw the court order compared to people that dug their heels in and wouldn't budge?
I've had 3 that were contested, and it was actually laughable because the thing is, the laws are pretty. A lot of people feel that the laws favor the tenants. They really don't. They're actually very fair. The Florida statute regarding tenants and landlords is very fairly done, and tenants will try anything to either stall or not to pay rent. And the law is pretty simple. If you got a reason why you don't want to pay rent, the first thing you have to do is deposit that rent in the court registry. and then notify the property manager and or the owner by certified mail the reasons why, and giving them 7 days to cure. If you fail to deposit money into the clerk, when you go in front of the judge, because most often, and I get Judge Tremonti, who's a great judge, very fair man, listens to both sides. The very first question he asks the tenant is, I don't see a receipt for the deposit into the court registry. Am I missing something? And they'll turn and say, no, Your Honor, I didn't do that. And then he just turns to me and says, dismissed. I signed the order right here, and it's done.
Wow.
So now the cost for eviction is about $550.
Okay.
All of that except for $195 is court costs.
Okay, so 195 is, I guess, for you for the extra work you have to do to do paralegal fee. So I guess, is there the property owner, do they have to do anything? Do they have to sign papers? Do they have to be in Florida? Can they outsource it all to you and your team to take care of?
That's a very good question. Basically, in the state of Florida, if the property is owned by an individual, I can represent them. We can do all the paperwork. There's nothing that they have to do, because the one thing, upon signing a lease with us, they sign a limited power of attorney that gives us the right to do that. And I will add that we obviously are going to let the property owner know that this is what's going on, so they're not blindsided. If the property is deeded under an LLC or corporation, then it gets a little complicated.
Right.
The state of Florida does not allow me to represent and does not let the owner. Then we have to get an attorney involved.
Okay.
So, and that in the 8 years has only happened once to me.
Okay, so clearly you or not, maybe not clearly, but would you be in a position to find or recommend an attorney that could represent an out-of-state investor who owned the property with an LLC, and then that attorney would do the same thing in the courtroom that you do?
Absolutely. Like I said, that's only if they contest it. I can file all the paperwork and everything for an eviction for an LLC. If it's non-contested, then it goes through and nothing has to be done. The only time is if we have to go to hearing or a trial.
Right. Okay. So typical example, somebody doesn't pay their rent. It's due on the 1st. They don't pay it. They get their late notice. They go through that. You file the papers after, day 4? You file the 3-day notice. Is that right?
Day 5. Day 5 is when it all starts. 3-day notice, late fee, everything.
And then 3 weeks from day 5, it would typically be done and dusted with the judge's hammer hitting the wood and then being
correct,
ready to
on
leave?
average. Obviously, there's going to be some delays around the holidays because judges take time off, but on average, it's 3 weeks.
Okay, and $550 would be the total
Correct.
cost for a typical example.
Correct.
Okay, so that's not too bad. I think most counties and most states would take far longer than 3.5 weeks and $550. So that doesn't seem too bad to me. And as you say, evictions are pretty rare if you have a manager that's doing their job properly in the first place by placing tenants with good, clean, rental histories and good solid jobs, right?
Exactly, and I will tell you this, and I mean this in all sincerity. I do not just put anybody into a property. I don't believe in that. I would much rather get pressure and heat from an owner for taking a little bit longer to rent a property to ensure that we did the best job we could to get a good tenant in there. So we just don't throw people in there. If I did that, I could rent everything I have in a day or two.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. And listen, before we'll wrap up in a few minutes, but as a landlord, landlords hate nothing more, aside from evictions, landlords hate nothing more than unexpected bills. So what are the typical maintenance issues that crop up, during the let's say somebody owns a property for 3 or 4 years. What are the typical maintenance issues that are going to crop up? How can they be minimized?
Typical maintenance issues for homes that are well maintained are going to be you're going to have some minor AC issues. Mm-hmm. The most typical, and it's something that we can't control, is, and I don't understand it because I'm not an AC guy, but for some reason there's these compressors, they leak. So after a couple of years, you may have to add a pound of Freon.
Mm-hmm.
If not that, then the condensation pipes. Because Florida, we've got tremendous amount of humidity and everything grows here, sometimes those condensation pipes will get clogged. And because everything is built now with safety mechanisms, when one of those get clogged, it immediately shuts the system down so the water doesn't overflow into the house and create any damage.
Okay.
So we have those kind of calls, and then we've got leaky faucets, things that, because of our water here in Florida, we've got a lot of lime, a lot of minerals, and we'll have leaky faucets. Sometimes faucets have to be replaced.
Okay.
And things like that. But on the well-maintained homes, the homes that we get that have the new ACs, that have the new roofs, and things like that, from an owner standpoint, very rare do we have repair issues. So, it's just things after a few years that pop up. It's the properties that aren't maintained. Like I have some owners that, they buy homes and they don't quite go through them and rehab them properly. And honestly, some of them buy them sight unseen and just have a handyman go in there and slap a coat of paint on them. Mm-hmm. Those are the homes that we have the most maintenance issues, because then you have shower valves go, you've got copper plumbing that is disintegrating and leaks and things like that. Old homes with bad wiring and things like that. But typically the type of properties that we deal with on the upper end, we don't have those type of issues. And because of our maintenance team and everything, we go out and identify the issue. First, we want to make sure that whatever it is, it wasn't tenant caused. And if it is, then we work with the tenant and we get that, and it's just the owner doesn't really even hear about it. If it's something that the owner is responsible for, if it's an emergency, obviously we're going to secure the property and then notify. Otherwise, we're going to talk to the owner and say, listen, this is what's going on. This is what needs to be, what has to happen, and this is what it's going to cost. So that we don't like surprises. We don't like surprises, and we don't like to spend owners' money.
Yep. No, I hear you there. And listen, one final question. I know, for us, Florida's not such a big deal to people that live here, but out-of-state people, they hear Florida, they hear rental property, and they get worried about hurricanes and the damage hurricanes can do. So you've been there managing for 8-9 years, and there's been plenty of minor and major hurricanes. Not so many major, to be honest with you, but there have been minor hurricanes, plenty of storms, plenty of rain blowing through Pasco County in that time. What have they been causing a lot of damage to these concrete built bungalows? Is this a big issue that property owners should be aware of if they see a hurricane forecast? Do they need to be calling you about anything? What's the deal there?
Well, first of all, when we have a situation where we have a named storm that has a potential impact to the area, I communicate to the owners right away, say, okay, we're closely monitoring this. We pay attention to where the properties are. Most of our properties that we have under management aren't along the coast, which is, obviously is a good thing. We go out to the properties, we check to see, because trees and things like that, anything that possible, could cause damage, and we relate back to the owner. We've been very fortunate over the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. We had some pretty bad hurricanes that came up and totally missed us. So we've been fortunate as far as wind events go. Our biggest thing have been rain events in the last few years. Mm-hmm. And again, we identify any properties that may be in an area that with excessive rain may be a problem, and then we work with the owner. We've had a couple of properties in one section where honestly we had 21 straight days of rain, and anything like that, you're going to have a potential problem. Right. The water start rising. We worked with the tenant. We got sandbags, and there was no damage to the house. So we're watching those things. But the main thing is communication. They're not going to be sitting there watching the news and saying, "Oh my God, what's going on with my property?" They're going to hear from me either by email or by phone. If I feel that there's a concern, they're going to hear about it, and we're going to work together to secure the property.
All right. I'm sure that'll be very reassuring that you don't worry yourself to bits over hurricanes. You take them very seriously. You're actively monitoring the properties. If sandbags need to get out, you get them out there. If owners need to be communicated with, if tenants need to be communicated with, it'll get done, and you'll be extra vigilant during those periods.
Exactly, and that's what we notify the owner, but we also notify the tenant, say, listen, you guys are partnered with us. Anything, if we have a wind event or anything like that coming, they get an email or a phone call stating, hey, secure what's outside, because anything that can move outside becomes a projectile, becomes a potential damage issue. And, we work with them. So absolutely.
Okay. Fantastic. Look, I've certainly met my fair share of characters over the years in buying and selling Florida properties. I'm sure you've had your fair share as well. I mean, before we wrap up, have you any funny stories to tell us, something crazy that happened to you or a tenant during the course of your work?
The one that comes to mind is a lady that kept on calling us because she kept on hearing noise in the attic. She thought there was a bear up there. And well, she insisted. So I went out there, and I heard noise up in the attic, but I didn't hear anything heavy. So I grabbed the ladder and a flashlight, went up there, and it turned out to be a mouse.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Okay, well, look, thanks very much, Mike. I think that was really useful podcasting. People are going to get a lot out of that. I mean, how can people contact you if they want to learn more about your business and the services you offer in Pasco County?
Sure, they can just call our office. Our phone number is 727-203-8650.
Mm-hmm.
And they can ask for me or just ask for a property manager and be able to give them information, anything they need. If they have any questions, they can call me anytime.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I know I've been working with you for years. You do a great job on our properties. Investors have spoken very highly with you as well. And I think people will get that impression from this podcast that you know what you're doing and that you're managing properties the right way. So thanks for talking to us. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch up again soon, okay?
Sounds great, Colin. Thanks. Take care.
Okay. All right, thanks very much, guys. That was Torcana Podcast 17. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought Mike gave a lot of really useful information there, not just for people interested in investing in Tampa, Florida, but a lot of useful information for people thinking about buying a property really anywhere in the United States. Most of the content in that could apply to any city across the country. And if you did want to learn more about Mike Bundy and his company services, as he said, he can be reached directly on 727-203-8650. I'm planning on doing more interviews with local people I know here in Tampa, Florida that can give us similar insights into property investing. So tune in to those for episodes 18, 19, and 20. They're in the pipeline. Thanks, as always, for your support. If you like these podcasts, I'd really appreciate it if you could give us a review or a rating in your iTunes or Android store. Thanks for your support, as always. If you want to get in touch with me, just go to torcana.com, Torcana.com. My email is colin.murphy@torcana.com. And I'm signing out for today. Thanks very much for tuning in. Bye-bye. This recording contains general information relating to the real estate market, and it is for educational purposes only. Buyers should always seek appropriate legal, tax, and financial advice from suitably qualified professionals before entering into any real estate transaction. Actual returns from rental properties will always vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. While we have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of any guests on our show, we do not warrant their accuracy. Opinions of the host are not necessarily shared by other employees and partners of Torcana and its subsidiaries.